What's happening, everybody? We are back. At this point, I don't even know what episode we're on. I think we're on episode 16, and we have an incredible guest here, Jena Turner. Thank you for taking the time to come on here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Heck yeah, heck yeah. So I could go on for a couple of stories about Jena, but I think it's best if Jena breaks down a little bit about herself and, what's your journey been like coming into real estate?
Yeah, so I have been doing real estate related businesses now for 12 years. I got into the industry from a background in property management and flipping investment properties for sale. And I said, those realtors, they just drive up in these fancy cars and they put a sign in the ground and they get paid the big bucks. And that seems like what I want to do. That looks super easy. Can't wait to do that. And as you know, it's not always like that, right? Um, so we live and learn a little bit. I got out of the investment space completely back then, and really realized that I didn't have a sphere or a network, or I didn't know that many people in Houston. I'm from a small town outside the city, but like an hour and a half outside of Houston. And I didn't really have like that silver spoon business that a lot of my friends in the industry seem to have. So I had to start working my sphere and working with a lot of renters back then. I was 24 years old and really grew a business my first couple of years with renters. And then we crawled before we walked here. And then, some of those renters started turning into buyers. And I have some clients now that I've done 5, 6, 7 transactions with this late in the game that started off as renters 12 years ago.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. And throughout that journey, so now you're running a pretty large operation over there, right? You're so humble. I got to like draw this shit out. So
Sorry. Well, yeah, because I don't think we'll ever feel like we have it figured out or that we're really leading the way in anything. But about 18 months ago, I had 8 people in my organization and I hired a coach. Coach said, do some recruiting. And I think now we kind of hover about with staff and agents around 50 people total in our organization. But I guess that can change daily. And I had an independent brokerage. I guess you need me to say that. I owned an independent brokerage for the last 3.5 years and just recently moved to EXP. But our brokerage model was a little bit different than what we're running now. Over the last few years, we started kind of morphing more into a team type scenario rather than a brokerage model.
heck yeah. And I think that really ties in. So you've got a ton of agents that you've gotten to experiment on, and you've also got your own knowledge, right? So if you were to start over today, what would you do to get from 0 to 100,000 as fast as possible in commission?
Wow. So it took me a lot longer than it should have to get there when I started out. But if I had known a few things differently, honestly, I never joined a team. I didn't join an office that really had a lot of mentorship or leadership within it. It was, a broker that did his own business and a handful of agents that were part time. But I think that would have sped up my ramping up in the business is being around other realtors who are doing the same thing that you were doing, right? If you were trying to work in real estate full time, then you need to work for an organization that has full-time realtors who are in the business every day. Because something as simple as sitting in the office and listening to their conversations about how they negotiate, how they prospect, how they cold call, you're going to learn so much quicker than I did all by myself on an island. So I think the first tip is make sure as an agent, you're in a place where one, people are holding you accountable to your goals. They can't make you productive necessarily, but you can have some sort of accountability, whether that is the team model or a brokerage model. I just think that when you're an agent who goes like the route where you're like, oh, I can work from home and I don't have to be around any other agents starting out, it's too hard. Don't do that to yourself. So start there, get around people who are like-minded, doing the same thing you are. the first thing that we tell our agents to do when they onboard, we actually, our new rule this year on onboarding is that an agent cannot onboard with us until they put 50 contacts in their CRM day one. If they do not put 50 contacts in their CRM, then that tells me they're not ready to prospect to their sphere, right? Prospecting to your sphere should be easier than prospecting to cold leads, in my opinion. It's already people who know, like, and trust you. So if you can't, commit to saying like, okay, well, these 50 people who know, like, and trust me already, my mom, my cousin, the lady who cuts my hair, those people, if you can't reach out to them and tell them, hey, I'm a real estate agent and I need your support, or I want to be here to offer value to you, then you're not ready to be a realtor, in my opinion. So first thing, start contacting your sphere and offering value. And that's really what I did. And my sphere changed over the years as I had more past clients. Like I would add them in, as I would see, like, gosh, my cousin has never referred me any business. They're off my sphere list. But I really worked anyone I could and just had as many conversations as possible when I was starting out. And those kind of contacts are what gets you moving quicker.
I like it. I like it. And so you would go with the same strategy, right? Like you would, if we were dropping you into another area, you would have immediately developed that sphere of influence if you didn't have it, or use the one that you do.
Absolutely. And now I say, like, God, I could move anywhere and duplicate what I've done here, which is like why I'm in Orlando right now, like, not Houston. I could live anywhere. I just want to live near Mickey Mouse, and do what I, have done over the last 10 years. But I think it was such small thinking 10 years ago where I was like, I picked Houston as my market and I could only, sit right here and develop this business. Once you figure out how to sell, then you just figure out you can sell anywhere. The other thing I would do if I was an agent is, from the very beginning, get really skilled at CMAs and prepping for listings. I think one of the biggest fears that agents have is that they aren't experienced enough to be a listing agent. And I think that the agents who really succeed in this business are just so brave that they'll go after a listing day one. And especially in this market, haven't you noticed we need a few listings?
Yeah.
So I would tell agents, like, go all in. There's no limit to you only working with buyers or only working with renters, or how you have to only working with certain price points. My agents tell me all the time, and it's crazy because my response is always the same. They tell me like, oh my God, I got $1 million lead and I'm so nervous. And I'm like, you've sold 75 houses this year. I don't know why you're so nervous. And they're like, I know, but it's $1 million. I'm like, to people with $1 million, it's the same as, any other house, right? Like, you're stressing about it, but I promise you, most of the time they won't be thinking that there's a different level of service for that price point, as long as you are doing a good job at any price point, correct?
Yep. Yep. I love that. And that's huge for especially your young agents, right? Because like what you really tapped into there is, I feel like that's another reservation that I've heard a lot. I'm sure you have too, is that like I'm gonna sit down for the listing appointment and they're gonna know I'm 22, and I'll sit down for that buyer appointment and they're gonna, think differently because of my age. And
Mhm.
that's where the numbers come into play. Like if you know your shit, they can't deny it. You have to come in with value. You have to know your numbers day in, day out. That's the first place always to start, is understanding the market and the numbers.
Yep. I had an agent yesterday. She's an old friend of mine, and randomly knew one of my agents. She came on. She's been with us for 13 days, and she executed her first contract yesterday, and a pretty hefty contract in a great area. And I gave her a call yesterday afternoon to congratulate her. And she said, like, I told these people I'm kind of new to this, but I will figure it out. I will figure out the answer to what you need. And sometimes honesty in a sales position, people are afraid to be vulnerable, right? To make
Yep.
the sale. But she was a professional, and they trusted that. They trusted that, hey, if she says, I'm kind of new to this, but I will find out the answers for you and I will see this through. And you're getting a lot of my attention because I don't have a lot going on yet. I was so proud of her for being honest and upfront about that. And honestly, we strive to make our agents have a few closed transactions by the end of their first 90 days. It's always a goal of ours. So it felt pretty good to have an executed contract on an agent 13 days in.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And, guys, I see there's a few people on. If you guys have any questions for Jenna, I'd love to get those answered before we take off here. I'm going to keep picking her brain myself, but if you guys have any questions, I'd love to get her interacting with you guys. The second part, so okay, so we've covered Sphere. We got the numbers. What happens after Sphere? So like now you're tackling that and you're trying to scale up, find other ways to get transactions.
Well, I think before agents pay for any leads, they need to make sure how often are they touching the leads that they already have. I have learned a lot about CRMs. I have learned a lot about lead revival, and I have learned a lot about paid leads over the last year when we started buying leads. I had run my business and doubled my numbers almost every year, 100% with Sphere, repeat, referral business. I never paid for a lead until a year ago, and our company was doing over $100 million a year annually in production before I paid for my first lead. Um, so I've learned a lot. What I mostly have learned is that we're not contacting the leads we have enough. So I tell my agents all the time, because there's a lot of bright and shiny objects in real estate where people will say like, "Oh, you need this lead source," or "Oh, it's this dialer. That's what's going to do it. That's going to be the one that gets you to make phone calls." No, it's you. You're the dialer. Like if you are making the dials, don't invest in anything else. I think that as agents, we need to be real honest with ourselves and look at how often we're contacting our leads in our sphere, any past clients, anyone who could be a referral source, and make sure that we're communicating with those people before we go throwing out money on new leads. When you do throw money out on new leads, also make sure you have a system that's going to follow up with them more than just once. And if we get really honest with ourselves, which we have to in our CRM, right? The CRM tells no lies,
Yep.
right? And what we live by is, if it didn't happen in there, it didn't happen. And so it's hard. It was hard for me though. I didn't 5 years in the business before I used my first CRM. I had like an Excel chart, you know. I actually said that on stage once on in the Inman conference, and every CRM like salesperson from a 50-mile radius found me after that and was like, "Girl, we need to you need to not be running your business on an Excel chart." But what you use is important. It's hard if you've been in this business for a while to teach like an old dog new tricks, right? It's hard to go back and teach yourself those skills, which is why we've implemented with our newer agents. Hey, 50 in first day, right? And if you don't do it, we're not even going to waste the time training you the rest of the way. Like I'm not going to waste any time with that. We've switched a lot of our onboarding lately to have some different things like that for new agents. If you're a new agent who wants to get to $100,000 quick, like you have to understand a contract. Don't
Yep.
wait until like you're waiting on your first deal, your second deal. Like you better be studying the contract. You better be studying how to price listings. You need to study everything you can, so that way you can really run with this and rapidly get to $100,000 your first year. But you can't do it without some form of education. And honestly, you just have to hit the ground running. I think we all wait until like we've learned enough, right? Like, well, if I take 10 classes about the contract, then that'll be it. Then I'll be ready to write my first contract. Like, no, go find the buyers, and you write enough bad offers, eventually you'll learn your lesson, and one of your offers will get accepted, maybe in this market.
Yeah, I mean, the contract's something real simple, right? Find somebody else, and you, like, either one, find your mentor, and even if you don't have a mentor, you do, and you just haven't reached out. Is the real truth.
Mhm.
Like there are a ton of people in this business that love to help people. But the second part of that is find somebody brand new, write contracts back and forth to each other. Take a listing that's up there, play this game where you're gonna write, they're gonna be the listing agent, you're gonna be the buyer's agent, you're gonna send in an offer and let them review that and figure out like what are the terms that they've got to speak to their seller about, and then flip it over again. And you know what, you'll figure out the weak points in the contract and how to mess with each other and do it in a fun way. But yeah, like there's so many people that don't understand the contract, it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start there. We've switched our onboarding to be less, teaching at people and more like, all right, today you're going to make so many calls and and they're like, what about the script? And then like, just call and be a human, right? I actually don't even care what you talk about. I'm going to give you 50 leads out of our like dead leads. Nobody was doing anything with them anyways. Like, call and talk to them about their favorite pizza. I don't care. Just you have to like make calls to work here. You have to get comfortable with talking to humans and like, don't make this awkward, bro. Uh, that's what I tell my agents all the time. Like, why do you sound like that? Like, well, you literally just changed your whole personality to become this version of a salesperson. And we're really trying to like authentic conversations, right? Just reach out in your database, just check in on people, and just practice, daily practice. If you want to know something about an area, go show houses in that area to yourself. If you want to become the expert on some part of the real estate business, I know a lot about renovations and construction. I've been doing videos way before videos were cool, talking about renovations and construction. And people who want to renovate a property or build brand new, they're coming to me and asking me for advice because they see me as the authority on that.
Yep.
Um, Agents have to just pick what they want to be what they're known for, right? We have 46,000 realtors in my MLS. So I have to tell my agents all the time, how are you going to stand out against 46,000? Because everybody is a great realtor at dinner parties, right? Everybody, oh, I'm such a great realtor, but why? How? Show me. And you have to show your sphere that, and of course, social media. You have to be a good representative of that all the time.
Hell yeah. Just out of curiosity on that number, I mean, if you don't know this, it's all good, but like in your MLS, do you know how many active listings there are? Like within 1,000?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I probably could know that. It shows every time I log in, it shows, but it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's still the least amount we've ever had in Houston.
Yeah, I don't know our exact number here, but we have it's more than 3,000 in the local MLS, and we only have 210 houses active on the market.
Yeah, James, you wanna come to Houston? We got more houses you can sell.
What's your average price point?
My agents and the cities is closer to like 350, 360, and my personal price point's closer to 800,000.
Nice. Dude, so like I was, Jen's like, yeah, 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 because I always have ideas that I want to do. And she's like, yeah, let's focus on the things we're doing. But I would love to one day take 30 days, or I guess maybe it would be 60, and just airdrop myself into another area where I don't know anybody and see
What
like
could happen?
yeah, like how fast, like what I could put under contract. Like I feel like you could make a little bit of a show out of it. Like the
Yeah.
road to 10 listings in your first 30 days or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think you could,
That'd be
and,
fun.
we're kinda doing something like that right now. I felt like our numbers were for the first quarter. I think everybody was feeling this. A lot of my coaching clients had mentioned it too. Like their numbers of executed contracts for the first quarter of the year was down, but we don't have any houses to sell, right?
Yep.
And interest rates started going up. So I kind of I do this. I don't really warn my staff that I'm gonna be a psychopath once a year. And I walked into my sales meeting a few weeks ago, and I told everyone like, "I love you all so much. I'm so glad you work here. But if you don't sell a house, you don't actually work here." And so I gave us a 60-day termination wall. And everyone had to put their name on a wall, and they have to have an executed contract or a sold or a closing from that day 60 days ago. So it didn't matter if they had something pending or not. They had to get a new contract in the next 60 days from that morning. And I think we're about a third through of people who pulled their names off the wall when they got a contract. It's definitely causing some anxiety and stress around my office, and I don't think everyone agreed with my policy on doing this. But some of our agents hadn't had a contract for their first 90 days, right?
Yeah.
And that's really kind of my policy as well. And our team has a minimum production of 12 homes a year, so if I don't spur them into action, and hold them accountable to like, you're not going to sell 12 in December, right? Like, so we got to get a hold of this right now. And I think my agents would say, man, we are doing stuff that we haven't done in a long time because the 60-day termination wall. They are cold calling, they are door knocking, they're open, doing open houses. It's back to basics for a lot of my folks who had been kind of content. And they are now, they're like, all right, we'll get moving. But there's been a ton of positive feedback within my Facebook group for my team saying, like, Jenna's right. There's money in your CRM. And it just took that little bit of a push. And I tell every single person in my group that comments nice things, I'm like, I'll slip you a 20 later when I get back to you. You said, you're right. Tell those agents that there's money in their CRM and they can go find it there if they do some follow up.
I love that. And you can apply that to yourself as an individual agent, right? Like make it something that you hate. Like I don't have this in place, but I would really hate to jump out of an airplane. I'm afraid of heights. So same concept. Give yourself 60 days. If you don't have one under a contract, I'm going to jump out of an airplane.
I love that.
Yeah.
Not really. I'm terrified for you, James. You better sell lots of houses.
I'm going to sell a house tomorrow.
I told I told some of my agents who sell a lot of houses, I was like, your goal shouldn't be one house. Like you can hold yourself to a different standard, which should be like, what is that? What's your rhythm? Like five? Should you have five in 60 days? Um, and so they were like, okay, we'll just tell you it's one, but in our head it'll be five. I'm like, no, you should.
Ooh.
um, so, whatever it is, I led by example on Monday. I did a call block of time from 3 to 6 p.m. on Monday and showed my agents like this is me being vulnerable and awkward, and it's not something I do anymore. I haven't cold called in a long time. So, um sometimes we have to lean into the uncomfortable to as leaders to make our agents see that like we're doing it too. Agents who are on their own or maybe aren't part of a team where they talk to the team leader or broker every day, they need to get around other like-minded agents and say like, hey, let's sit down and make awkward calls all day long and do it together. Sometimes I think that accountability is what is a driving force for agents to move a little bit further in their business.
100%. And I'm looking, Joel's over here. And if anybody here locally is struggling with that, they can come here and Joel will hold them accountable and they'll hold Joel accountable.
Did you just blow a kiss at Joel?
I did.
This show just got weird, and I like it.
Oh man, we have a lot of fun in this office that definitely cannot be aired. There's definitely a lot of things that get said that cannot be aired in here.
I like it.
I did. Yeah, I hate my life on that challenge. Yeah, he said talk about the challenge. He's the most accountable human being in the world. like
Mhm.
super duper accountable. And he wanted to do 30 days no alcohol, which was really easy for him because he was already 6 months no alcohol. And I'm like, sure, yeah, like I'll do that. But then we got to do under 50 carbs because like I got to like stick it to him now to
Yeah,
add this other layer and it'll be
right.
hard. Dude, the under 50 carbs is way harder than no alcohol. Like last night, my buddy's birthday, and he's got it was double whammy. He had fireball cupcakes. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, that's poison for you.
And then it's doubled. I'm gonna lose on both things. It's probably
Yeah.
120 carbs and it's got alcohol in it. And and then he baits me. He's like, man, it's my birthday. Are you really not gonna have a cupcake with me? I'm like, I'm committed. I'm going to the bathroom.
Rude. Honestly, that's rude.
He-
Cool.
he's he's the man. Hey Sherry, I see you over there. I hope everything's well. Um, hey man, I appreciate you being here, and I don't see a whole lot of questions coming in. I do have one more for you, but is there anything you want to leave them on? Like, we've given them a few different ways to build and strategies to go with, but any last minute advice for them?
Yeah, I would just say they gotta make the calls, talk to the people. It's very simple. Real estate agents make it a lot harder than it has to be. The more conversations you're having, the bigger your network becomes. The more education and value you're bringing the consumer base, the bigger your network becomes. Those are the places to focus when you're an agent starting out to grow a really big business where you don't have to pay for leads and you don't have to do all those things. And if you want to, you can for sure. And we do too now, but I think you start with the basics, which is conversations and offering value. And doing that as much as frequent as you possibly can is going to get you from 0 to 100K a lot quicker.
I love it. I love it. And last question here. So, you recently came over, and what were some of the biggest problems that you were experiencing before you came to EXP? And then what did EXP do to solve it?
Well, I think for me personally, being a brokerage owner was not my dream originally. It was kind of by default I got there. And I really felt alone on an island in a lot of ways, right? I had people from my coaching group or would go to conferences, but really at the end of the day, when a problem was a problem, it was only my problem, right? And there was this thing going on in my market where I had a lot of good girlfriends in the market, a lot of good friends that, other top producing agents who kind of seemed like they wanted to work with us, but they didn't want me to be their boss. Like we started the industry at the same time. They didn't want me to be their broker. So, when I heard about EXP and really sat down and looked at some of the problems it could solve. One, we hadn't had this problem yet, but I knew my top agents eventually would want some autonomy, right? They want their face on a sign. They want, the Jill team, right? Like they wanted that. And that's the dream for a lot of people. And so I was like, crap, they could leave one day and I would be really sad. And then we were kind of operating as a team more than a brokerage, anyways. And then I realized that I could get a lot of my competitors to work with me if they didn't work with me.
Yeah.
So it would solve the, competitiveness of our market and um, build a bigger table. And so it solved a lot of those problems. Now, Shannon, my director of operations, would say, like, it solved a lot of problems from her side. She's like, I'm so glad this isn't my responsibility anymore. I'm so glad it's EXP's job to track down checks and do all these things. So there was obviously some added benefit for some of my staff as well.
Awesome, man. And what's been your experience since you came over? What was the one thing or maybe a couple things you didn't expect when you came over?
So one of the, I think, misconceptions about EXP is that there's like one broker in every state, which I'm actually, if people want to follow me on social, on Instagram, it's Jena Found Realty. And I'm working on something right now to actually show what the management looks like in every state with EXP, because that was the biggest misconception I was told, was that it was going to be a nightmare. We got a team. We EXP reaches out to us more than we reach out to them to see what they can do to support us. And it's been honestly a really smooth transition over. Of course, anything has some bumps in the road. There's, been a few things like, oh, we're locked out of this thing and we can't reset our password, a couple of things like that. But overall, the experience has been really smooth. And from my perspective, really well run and really well organized. So I think that has been a big surprise. And I think our agents are starting to every day understand a little bit more. I had lots of agents who had never had health insurance before get health insurance.
Yeah.
And that was a big win. Now I don't ever see them. They're just going to doctor's appointments. They hadn't been to the dentist in 10 years. So that's unfortunate for me. Every time I'm like, where are you at? A doctor's appointment? You got health insurance and now you gone. And so like, but there's lots of benefits. We're definitely seeing them. And I am so happy not to be the bossiest boss. Like I'm the mid-level boss. I like that. I like that EXP is the bossiest boss now.
Awesome, man. So again, Jenna, I appreciate you being here. I know that you got a lot going on. You're super busy, but I appreciate you contributing towards our community over here. And yeah, man, if there's ever a way I can repay you, you always just let me know. Whatever I can do to help and help you guys
For
over
sure.
there.
You can't tell a girl like me that, because I put that in my back pocket, and one day I'll be like, James, here's the deal. I'm in jail and I need you to bring $100,000 and a cupcake.
And a cupcake with Fireball.
A cupcake with Fireball, obviously. Now that I know you have that in your arsenal.
It's somewhere. Somebody's got it. I know that.
No, I'm a big fan of you guys and what you're doing, what you're building. I love getting to spend time with y'all in Cabo. And, I'm always in your corner, however I can, to support you guys.
You're the bomb, man. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll talk to you later.
All right.